Guys, wouldn't your wife or girlfriend love it if you treated her to the very best this Christmas? Now you can, with the world's softest pajamas by Pajamagram. Created by a team of pajama experts, the world's softest PJs are lighter than a cloud, softer than a bunny, like cashmere, only better. She'll love how heavenly they feel. Includes free gift packaging and Christmas delivery is guaranteed. So visit pajamagram.com or call 1-800-GIVE-PJs.
This is the Locker Room Podcast.
Hi, it's the Locker Room here on ESPN Radio, the Week 1 edition of the Locker Room. I'm Kirk Morrison, 8-year NFL veteran and ESPN NFL analyst. He's DeMarco Farr, Super Bowl champion, as well as Rams field analyst here on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, and XM80, presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests, as always, appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Hotline, and you can always tweet the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed, at ESPN Radio, at Kirk Morrison, at DeMarco Farr 1. 888-SAY-ESPN is our number, 888-729-3776. On that call earlier, Sports Radio 610. I want to give them a little credit. Deshaun Watson entering the game. So much to get to, DeMarco Farr. Have you finally relaxed, like came down, had a woosah with so much going on the first weekend of NFL action? Have you finally come down yet?
No, I like how you use my whole name, though. Sound like my mother when I'm in trouble. DeMarco Farr, get in here. But I'm still dehydrated from that game. 90 degrees down there. It was warm. It was one of those subtle type days to where you didn't know it was that hot until like you sweated out your all your fluids that day. But yeah, it was a great game. Watching Jared Goff and the Rams do what they do and, scoring that many points and holding Indy to under 10 points, that was amazing. I feel bad for Chuck Pagano on the other side. It's going to be a long year for them. I mean, really, you saw it, Kirk. I mean,
yes.
Wow. I mean, where do you find a positive out of that if you're Chuck Pagano?
Yeah, it's a lot that we're going to have to get into.
Yeah.
DeMarco Farr, field analyst for the Los Angeles Rams. He was at Rams Colts today, and it was so many other games that we got to get to as well. We got the early afternoon games, whether it's the Falcons, Bears, Bengals, Ravens, Steelers, Browns, Jaguars, Texans, Lions, Cardinals. A lot of games, a lot of stories to get into, and I think really we have to start, honestly, right what we just witnessed watching right now, the Sunday night NFL game between the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants. The Dallas Cowboys, finally, they snapped that 3-game losing streak, DeMarco, to the New York Football Giants, who, let's make sure we talk about it, they were without one Odell Beckham Jr. And could you say that one person means that much to a team or an offense, that without Odell Beckham Jr., the Dallas Cowboys hold the New York Giants to only 3 points, DeMarco? Is Odell Beckham Jr. that much of a factor when it comes to the Giants offense?
I think he's that much of a factor offensively, no doubt. You look at Eli's numbers. I mean, 29 of 38 for 220. I mean, you think if you take half of those targets and you put Odell Beckham Jr. in there, maybe those yards would increase by 100 yards, maybe more. Definitely, he wouldn't finish the game without a touchdown. I'll give you that. Dallas's defense, I mean, look, it's nothing to write home about, and they look like world beaters against the Giants. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of people have been telling me that Odell Beckham Jr. might be the face of the league. I mean, that's debatable, but he's definitely the face of the Giants, and they missed him out there tonight.
Yeah, I can tell you this. Being, me and you former defenders in the NFL, you know that if you don't have to worry about that guy, and I say Odell Beckham Jr. is that guy, meaning that a guy that can change the way the game is played, that can change the way that you cover, that you can change the way that you play defense because of what he can do, his capability, that you always have to keep an eye on him. Not just a pair of eyes. Maybe it's 2 or 3 guys that are just situated on him at all times. He's not there, and I really thought that there was nobody else on that Giants offense that really, I think, could overcome that. Look, the big free agent signing in the offseason for them was, remember, Brandon Marshall. He was targeted 4 times. And
I had to search to find his name in the stat column.
Well, the one thing I thought he was just doing conditioning. I think he was just doing conditioning drills. He only had 1 catch. He was targeted 4 times. He got 1 catch for 10 yards, and that was
10 yards. Wow.
Literally at the end of the game. Total yards for the New York Giants, 233, and a lot of that really came at the end. 4 of 12 on third down, a lot of that garbage yards. But for right now, when you look at the NFC East, I'm, for one, raise my hand. I had the New York Giants win this division. I won't come off of that,
did?
but
Really?
I did have the New York Giants.
Wait, was that before or after the suspension for Ezekiel Elliott?
That was
because I had
before.
Dallas winning before.
Well, that was before.
Okay.
Before the suspension and even after the suspension, I still think that New York will find a way to figure it out. Just Odell Beckham Jr. not being out there, I thought really changed. But there are some bright spots when you look at the Dallas Cowboys, though. You look at Dak Prescott, 24 of 39, 268, and a touchdown.
MVP candidate, man.
He's an MVP candidate, DeMarco. And why do you say that he's an MVP candidate?
You know, because he's only going to get better. And I thought he was phenomenal last year. I mean, look, he's got one of the best O-lines in the game. And look, pick a running back. Ezekiel Elliott's the best of the bunch, but McFadden is he's no slouch. And Alfred Morris used to be the guy in Washington. So, I mean, they can run the football. I mean, they're well coached. I think he's got the right staff behind him. And Scott Linehan, who is kind of a quarterback whisperer. I mean, he's used to working with guys like Dak Prescott. Go back to Dante Culpepper and what he did for him. So I think he's only going to get better. And this offense, with the weapons that he has, look, you're going to start to see some real arm talent out of this guy. He's going to be an MVP candidate.
You know, Eli Manning didn't have the touchdowns, the scoring opportunities like you would want him to have, but he was 29 of 38, 220 through the air, but he did have the one interception by Anthony Brown for the Dallas Cowboys. But look, the 3-game losing streak is now snapped, and the Dallas Cowboys look to be right now, with Ezekiel Elliott not facing the suspension. Right now, there's a hold on his 6-game suspension. We'll see what goes on after that. I mean, obviously, some court proceedings must come forward.
And I'm not smart enough to understand any of that. I don't get it. Are you suspended or are you not? Because I just saw you playing tonight.
Right. Just give me the Cliff Notes. Give me the Cliff Notes version. But I tell you this, Ezekiel Elliott back to doing Ezekiel Elliott things. And I mean, I'm talking about the football player, what he does on the field, 24 carries, 104 yards, but it's also what he does in the air as well. He got the ball 5 times receptions-wise. 36 yards, and
140
DeMarco,
total. Yeah, it's amazing.
Well, what makes him so special? It's one of those things too where we both look at him and I'm like, well, what makes this kid go?
He's big. He's physical. He can run. He can catch the ball. He's a complete running back. There's almost nothing you can do defensively to say we can take him away with this, because he can just about do it all. I was looking at his numbers right before you said it. 24 carries, 104 yards, and his longest rush was 10 yards. So imagine what is that doing to the New York defense or any defense?
It's
just gut punching. Yeah, just gut punching. Wearing you the hell out trying to bring this guy down. It seems like he doesn't get tired unless you overuse him, and he's got great vision. You saw Frank Gore tonight and how he runs, how he always runs behind his pads. That's how I see Zeke Elliott run the football. So tough to bring down. Doesn't give you a big target to hit.
Yeah, we're still going to look for the birth certificate for Frank Gore. I feel like he's been in the league for about 30 years. So we'll figure that out.
When you talk about the greatest tight ends in the game or guys that you would want to play with, how soon before you get to Jason Witten does that name come up?
You know what?
Because I just did a little list. I mean, Shannon Sharp.
You know what? Hold that. I want you to hold that list. That's something that we can discuss when we get back here on the locker room. Plus, one team had their star player out tonight, DeMarco, but one may have theirs out for the whole season. We'll get to that next. It's Kirk Morrison, DeMarco Farr here on the locker room on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
This is the Locker Room on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
The Locker Room, Kirk Morrison, DeMarco Farr here on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, and
what are you laughing at?
80.
What are you laughing at?
It's just too easy sometimes, right? It's just too easy. Some people are playing chess and other people are playing checkers. But you know what? It's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. And DeMarco Farr, you were talking just a little bit earlier about list of tight ends, because tonight Jason Witten breaks the Cowboys' all-time receiving yardage record, a tight end with the most yards than any Cowboy receiver in history.
Yeah. Broke Michael Irvin's record. That's a big deal.
Michael Irvin, that's a huge deal, because we know where Michael Irvin.
Poor Michael.
He wears the gold jacket. Jason Witten tonight, 7 catches, 59 yards, the touchdown we heard. And DeMarco, when you look at the tight end position, especially the way we look at it now,
I hate tight ends.
I hate making lists too.
Yeah,
but you got to make lists, and you had a list. And when do you put that list? I mean, when you put that list up, where do you finally, or where does Jason Witten fall when you talk about tight ends, best tight ends, literally of all time? Because I think he's on that list.
Well, it's crazy. I mean, first of all, about the tight end position, I have a theory. Would you like to hear my theory on tight ends?
I would love to hear your theory on tight ends.
No one ever goes out for tight end. They just wind up there. Skinny tackle, big receiver, or defensive end that can't turn the corner. You become a tight end, right?
It's the
receiver or a basketball player. Or a basketball player, right?
Basketball player, right.
Yeah, they become tight ends. But they're so important to an offense. They're so important to quarterbacks. Kellen Winslow, one of the greatest to ever do it at that position, told me
senior.
Yeah, senior. And junior. Junior was good, too. But
junior was darn good, too. Yeah.
The tight end is always open. And, as a defender, it's pretty much true. They're always open. There's always an outlet for a quarterback with a tight end. But when you talk about the greatest guys, the greatest players, and you start naming off guys, and I wonder, when does Jason Witten come up for you? So I did my quick list. I had Shannon Sharp, Tony Gonzalez, of course, Antonio Gates. I even put Gronk there, and then I said, Jason Witten in Dallas. Maybe it's because he doesn't call any attention to himself. Right. He's not a big talker. All he does is go out there and play and kick people's butts. So it's just I was wondering, where did you put him on your list if you had a list?
If I had a list, I will put him definitely in my top 6 or 7. Because I think for me with Jason Witten, it does go back to what you're talking about, DeMarco. He's not the guy that just has this elite talent. You know what I mean? Like when you throw in Antonio Gates, to me, playing against Antonio, I know it was about his footwork. It was about his body position. You mentioned Shannon Sharp. He was really kind of the first. He and Tony Gonzalez were the first guys to start flexing out.
Hybrid guys. Yeah.
Yeah. When you think of tight end, you mentioned it was an extension of the offensive line. It was the extra tackle in the game.
True.
And all of a sudden, Shannon Sharp and Tony Gonzalez began to line up what we call flexed out from the line of scrimmage, where they stood up. They didn't put the hand in the dirt. And all of a sudden, you were like, okay, my coverage just starts to look different now because I got to walk a linebacker out.
How do you consider this guy? What do I do with this, coach? Right, he's a tight end, but he's standing up. I don't know what to do.
Yeah, but I think Jason Witten is one of the more all-around tight ends that we've seen in the league. He actually is an extension of the running game as far as he's an extra tackle. You know what I mean? His blocking is something that I think that just he gets a ton of credit for, and I think for him it's just because he's not a flashy tight end. That's why I put him in my top 10. You say his name, at the end of the day, he's not going to be in your top 5 because you're going to think of guys who had great production, but you just knew what they were going to do. He has the production, but when you say his name, I think DeMarco, you're going to just say, oh, yeah, okay, I got that.
Yeah,
I got it.
You almost forget. And I do agree. It seems like it's a run or a race between Jason Witten and Antonio Gates for who's going to retire first. Because I said this right before we came back on. 5 years after they retire, and they're both up for the Hall of Fame, you've got to put them in. You're going to say one's first ballot and one's not? They're both great. You might have 2 tight ends going in the Hall of Fame at the same time. They're just that good.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're both that good. But then I think also, too, when you have a safety net, look, everyone says that a dog is a man's best friend. And I think for me in the NFL, a quarterback's best friend is a tight end. You know what I mean? That's the one guy. And for so many years, I've always said this. I learned this from a coach in college. Sometimes there's certain guys that just have a chemistry. Right. And that chemistry between Tony Romo and Jason Witten was that Tony can be blindfolded and throw it, and Jason Witten hit him right in his hands. You know what I mean?
Right in the chest, yes.
Always, just because they just knew where to be at. And I think he's trying to develop that relationship, obviously, with Dak Prescott. And, look, tonight's win goes a long way for the 2017 Cowboys as they start to build on last year's success. Now, will they have the success in the postseason? That's what it'll come down to. But like you mentioned, they have a tight end that can help them out, that can help the extension not only of the running game, but can help out the passing game as well.
Yeah, and good for Des Bryant. You don't have to face Janoris Jenkins every week, so you might have a chance to get loose. But, think about the Cowboys last year. 13-3, and 2 of those losses were to the Giants. And you just beat them on Sunday night. So what a lift that's going to be for that football team. So, if they stay healthy and keep getting better, this could be the year that the star gets back into the big time. Wouldn't that be nice for Jerry Jones and company? But I was going to ask, man, I mean, a young and healthy Jason Witten or a young and healthy Rob Gronkowski? Which one are you picking first?
See? It's tough. Because I think Gronk is also an extension of the running game. He's a guy that blocks hard as well. And that's all I think. When I think of tight ends, I like the ones that can get down and get dirty.
Yeah.
Don't throw me a Jimmy Graham out there. I don't want that.
I never feel bad for a knocked out tight end ever.
No,
Receivers maybe, quarterbacks yes, not tight ends. Can't stand it.
Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LT networks. DeMarco Farr, we had a couple of rookie quarterbacks, and one in particular that had an impressive debut. We'll tell you who that is next on The Locker Room.
This is The Locker Room on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Why do you keep laughing? Are you getting text messages?
No. I just love listening to highlights. I'm a highlight guy here.
Wow.
On The Locker Room, Kirk Morrison, DeMarco Farr here on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app XM80, presented by Progressive Insurance. To our Twitter feed, at ESPN Radio, at Kirk Morrison, at DeMarco Farr1. DeMarco Farr, that's the Super Bowl champion of the St. Louis Rams, now Los Angeles Rams. I'm Kirk Morrison, 8-year NFL veteran.
And novice tweeter.
Yeah, I'm a novice tweeter.
I'm a novice tweeter. You're a pro.
I try to tweet as much as possible, but NFL Sunday, I'm not one of those guys that just want to tweet every single thing that happens.
Right.
But I can tell you on a day like today, we both were at the Rams and the Colts game at the LA Coliseum, and being there, sometimes the only way that we can get our information is following Twitter. Yeah. And so the big information that was passed along to me was that there was a change at quarterback in Houston, that Tom Savage just was not getting the job done, and they had to make a change. And who better to make a change, right? Bill O'Brien, head coach of the Houston Texans, who's not afraid to make he's not afraid to make a change. And look, the final numbers here, Tom Savage was 7 of 13 for 62 yards in the first half. That means 30 minutes, right? He played 30 minutes and only was able to complete 7 passes, 62 yards. Okay?
Yes.
DeAndre Hopkins at the same time. Remember, DeAndre Hopkins, first half, no catches. They make the change at half. Deshaun Watson comes out 2 minutes into the first, into that first drive, the third quarter. All of a sudden, DeAndre Hopkins gets not only his first catch, but he also scores a touchdown thrown from Deshaun Watson. I think now the decision has been made. To quote one of my buddies, I used to always hear him say,
"Yeah,
the toothpaste is now out of the tube, and it's going to be it's too hard to put it back in." I think Deshaun Watson has kind of made that decision now. You don't bench your quarterback in the first half of the first game and expect everybody to still fall in love with him and say, "Oh, he's our guy. Tom Savage is our guy." I think Deshaun Watson is now your new starter of the Houston Texans, and you got to sink or swim with the rookie quarterback. Is that how you see it, DeMarco?
Yeah, I agree with you, man. I mean, what you've created is a full-fledged quarterback controversy. I mean, you have to go with Watson and say he's your guy now, or if not, you're going to create dissension in the locker room. Well, I mean, look, it's Bill O'Brien. I'm sure he can, tell his team he's trying to do the best to help these guys get a W. But I tell you, man, going back to tweeting for a hot second, if I could tweet something to the Texans, I would tweet, "Pay Dwayne Brown ASAP."
Well, let's get into that. Go ahead.
Yeah, you give up 10 sacks and your best offensive lineman is still holding out because of money. Well, look, that's something easy. Sign him to a bigger deal, give him what he wants, and get him back in uniform ASAP. Because if you don't, it doesn't matter who's playing quarterback. 10 sacks to Jacksonville, that's not good. That's not good enough by a long shot.
Well, it wasn't just about the sacks, though, DeMarco. And you mentioned Calais Campbell had 4 of them by himself, along with Giannis Ngakoue had 2 also as well. It was just the Jaguars looked like the much better team. I mean, this is a team in Jacksonville that benched their quarterback, Blake Bortles, 2 or 3 weeks ago. And all of a sudden now he looked like Blake Bortles, not saying that he just had numbers that were outstanding. I mean, he was only 11 of 21 for 125, but it was the running game of Leonard Fournette. It was the Jaguars looking, but it did come at a price. Allen Robinson, they believe, to have an ACL injury, maybe out for the year for the Jacksonville Jaguars. But you're winning 29-7. You beat the Texans 29-7. Yeah, changes have to be made. And, look, there were a lot of guys – well, there were not a lot of guys. There were a couple guys who tried to hold out this offseason. Okay, Dwayne Brown is actually still holding out. Aaron Donald reported to the Rams. He is now a Ram for the season. We'll see if a contract happens for him. Dwayne Brown is still holding out. The left tackle, all-pro left tackle and Pro Bowl left tackle for the Houston Texans is still holding out. And when you look at the performance by that offensive line today, how many times the quarterbacks were hit, even remember,
10 hits and 10 sacks, man.
That was a forced fumble,
day.
too. Yeah, a forced fumble, too, by the quarterback that resulted in a touchdown also for the Jacksonville Jaguars. If I'm Dwayne Brown, I'm going to tweet, I'm going to text, I'm going to send a picture, I'm going to stand out front and say, let me know when y'all ready. And then that's Rick Smith, the general manager, and Bob McNair, the owner. We need this guy.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
And I'm a fan of Calais Campbell. I mean, I used to watch him kill the Rams every single year when he was in Arizona. But when's the last time you can say he's had a multi-sack game, let alone 4 in one game? Right. 4 sacks by Calais Campbell. I mean, great player. He brings it, absolutely. Right. But I never thought he was a 4-sack guy. You have protection problems big time in Houston right now.
Yes. And when you have those big-time problems, it does result in bad quarterback play. And he was pulled from this game, and Tom Savage spoke after the game about being pulled and being benched by Coach Bill O'Brien. Here's Tom Savage.
I mean, obviously you never want to be replaced. That's not a good feeling. But that's called a team sport, and I'll be here for this team. That's out of my control. So I'm going to be ready to go, and just like I have been for the past 4 years, and that's kind of what trained me for this.
Well, what's he supposed to say?
What is it? First of all, what is he supposed to say? But then also he has to realize that the guy who was behind him, DeMarco, is now no longer, I think, behind him. We're talking about the guy who we watched lead Clemson to a national championship over Alabama. So the legend has already been started. The legend is already continuing. And Deshaun Watson got his opportunity, and he showed, look, he's going to be a capable quarterback. Will he be the starter? I don't know if Bill O'Brien will name one. He has not named Deshaun Watson as the quarterback. But I think Deshaun Watson was pleased with his performance. Here's Deshaun Watson after the game.
I mean, it was all right. Some learning lesson. You live and learn. And, first career NFL game. So it's a lot to learn from, watch the tape, and then move on.
But he wasn't the only Deshaun to make his debut, DeMarco. There was another Deshaun. But this time, this was the Deshaun, and he was in Cleveland. Deshaun Kaiser, the first-round pick of the Cleveland Browns, he made his debut, and not a lot less fanfare, but at the same time.
That's a nice way to put it.
Yeah. Because in Houston, look, they were all about it, and this was a little bit different. He came in as the starter, so it wasn't, here's a guy who's sitting the bench, and you're hopefully, at some point he gets in. No, Hugh Jackson, head coach, named Deshaun Kaiser early. He is going to be his starting quarterback. And look, for a first game, 20 of 30, 222 yards, a touchdown, 1 interception. He had a couple rushes as well, 5 for 17, and the one rushing touchdown. Had some little moves after that. But DeMarco, there's going to be room for improvement always in young rookie quarterbacks. But just a little bit on Deshaun Kaiser that you've seen so far. And is it a situation where Cleveland is rebuilding, they want to see what they have, or does Deshaun Kaiser, you think, have the goods?
I think he's got the car keys, man. I mean, turn it over to him and just, help him get better. Help him develop as a passer in this league. I like his numbers, 20 of 30, 222, like you said, sacked 7 times, but that's not necessarily the O-line's fault. Sometimes he can run himself into sacks. But, you can see the mobility. He was the second leading rusher for the Browns today, 5 carries, 17 yards, running for your life. And if you look at the scoring today, if the Steelers don't get that block punt early, look, the Browns could have very well beaten them. So, it's a loss for Cleveland, but it's one of those moral victories. If you're Hugh Jackson, you might be telling your team, hey, look, we're on the same level as the Steelers right now, even if it's not true. We're on the same level. We took the Steelers down to the wire, and they beat us on a blocked field goal. But we know about the Steelers. Once Le'Veon Bell gets up to speed, here they go again. They're going to be one of the players in the AFC. But The Browns right now, like I said, I'm with you, man. I'd turn the keys over to the kid and try to get Kaiser better.
Yeah, no, he played a lot better than that. Trust me, he played a lot better than that. But I think
that was Tom Savage's soundbite.
Yeah, it should have been just blank. Nobody wanted to talk to Tom Savage, but it's still a ton of games for us to get to here, DeMarco Farr. It's week 1 of the NFL season, and so a lot of people out there, it's going to be that time too. And I'm teasing it now because tomorrow is, or for some, it's already the next day. It's Overreaction Mondays in parts of the country. Overreacting for what we saw today. And we're going to take your calls here, 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. Get your calls ready because we're going to get into them at some point.
I got one.
Is it time to start overreacting? That's
you want one? The Watt in Pittsburgh is better than the one in Houston. That's an overreaction.
Here you go. You started stuff. But that Pittsburgh defense did look good. Absolutely. But you know what? Even though they lost, the Texans performed off the field, I think, a little bit better. And it was a lift that the city of Houston needed. We'll discuss that next, what Houston needed to do or what they have been doing, and sort of, I think, a gift back to their fans. We'll discuss that next. Kirk Morrison, DeMarco Farr, it's The Locker Room on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
This is The Locker Room on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
In the last couple of weeks, obviously, we've been talking Houston Strong and Hurricane Harvey, its effects, not just on the city of Houston, but also some of the sports teams, the Houston Texans, having to cancel their 4th preseason game. And a lot of their efforts, especially one J.J. Watt and the money he's been raising to help out the victims of Hurricane Harvey. And today was sort of that time to give back. The first game being played since Hurricane Harvey. Last night I had a chance to do the University of Houston college team, the football team, the Cougars, and Major Applewhite head coach took on the Arizona Wildcats. And I can tell you this, the athletes down in Houston, they've been playing with heavy hearts. Definitely felt like they've had the city on their shoulders. A lot of people backing them, supporting them, and wanting them to continue on. And so much, I think, is to be made for sports, and you can feel that energy, DeMarco, from just watching it on television, just listening to it and seeing it. It was emotional today in Houston, and our own Jeff Darlington, who was there at NRG Stadium today, spoke about it.
It started off incredible, and I know J.J. Watt has maintained such great perspective when it comes to balancing football with the relief aid, and I know it was very meaningful him to want to come out here and put some smiles on the faces in the stands. So he certainly was disappointed by the outcome. He also does know that everything that's happening within the community is far bigger than football itself, and he will continue to help the community. But there's no question that the crowd definitely felt extremely deflated, and I think it was a frustrating day in terms of football, and maybe not the kind of outlet that they wanted. But again, not but a half mile from the stadium. I was here last week. The possessions of hundreds of houses are out on the front lawns, and I don't think that anybody in this football game misunderstands that or doesn't understand the magnitude of that situation. So they'll continue to fight on in the community, and they'll continue to try to get better on the field, even though those two things aren't necessarily entirely connected.
That was our own Jeff Darlington, our ESPN NFL insider, joining us there, or with showing us earlier on SportsCenter. DeMarco, just when you think about what's been going on with Hurricane Harvey and the relief efforts and what J.J. Watt is doing, and now going back out there trying to play a football game, you played for a long time. How do you compartmentalize what's going on the outside and focus in on doing, honestly, your job?
I have no idea. How to get through that. I've never been through anything. I was actually in Houston once about a year ago when it did flood. It wasn't a storm that came through. It was a rainstorm, but not like a one they had recently. And the entire city flooded, and we flew out of there like 2 or 3 days later, and it was just crazy to be there. I can only imagine now. You almost want to give the Texans a pass. You wish that this game didn't count because they're going through more than any other team is going through right now, save for Florida, what they're going through right now. But the thing that it underscores for me, man, is you have a huge platform as a football player, as an NFL football player, and you can like or not like what the message is going to be. You love what J.J. Watt is saying. You raise $30 million for flood relief. That's something you can get behind. You may hate what Colin Kaepernick is for, but guaranteed in the NFL, when you have the shield behind you, that message is going to reach a lot of people. So you have to give a lot of credit to J.J. Watt for what he's doing, the fact that he cares, that he can put aside what's important, what's most important, trying to win a football game and trying to help people in his community. I think that's amazing. I actually gave to what he's doing. And he inspired me to do more. And sitting here in California, I have people down in Houston that are suffering. We're offering place like our house here, our living room here. If you need a place to stay, come here. People in Florida, if you're trying to get out of the way of that storm, come here, man. We'll take care of you now. Who cares what you have to do to get here? Just make sure you get here and keep your family safe. So you have to give him a lot of credit. And that he can suit up and actually play a game through all that is amazing.
Can play a game, and then also, too, his younger brother you mentioned earlier had a terrific game as well with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Can I read that stat line?
Yeah, read the stat line one more time, because it's not J.J. Watt, we know the person, but then he's an awesome football player, but he may not have had the best day of all the Watts.
Yeah, I looked at J.J. Watt's stats. Like, I'll give him a pass. Yeah, one tackle, one pass defense. But his little brother, 6 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, 2 quarterback hurries, a pick, a pass defense, and a special teams tackle. Come on, man. I mean, that might be the greatest line of anybody that played this Sunday or all week. That's amazing.
He's a stat sheet stuffer. That's what I want to call T.J. Watt, the brother of one J.J. Watt. But, you know, there are some other games, too, that we have to get to and just got to get our takes on. I mean, the early afternoon games first, though, that really caught my attention. Obviously, the Baltimore Ravens winning 20-0 over the Cincinnati Bengals. I want to dive into that one. The Oakland Raiders 26-16 over the Tennessee Titans. I thought that was a huge game and one that may not have been on a lot of people's radar, but it seems like no one talks about them. But at the end of the year, they're always right around the playoffs, and that's the Detroit Lions. They started their season off winning 35-23 over the Arizona Cardinals. And, you know, the Cardinals are a foe in the NFC West, something that we cover pretty much every single day. And when Carson Palmer starts bad, it usually goes bad for the Arizona Cardinals. We'll look more into that. 888-SAY-ESPN is our number, 888-729-3776. Let's take a look at some of the afternoon games, and we'll just talk with Brady Henderson, the Seahawks reporter, on the ESPN radio and the ESPN app. Kirk Morrison, DeMarco Farr, you're listening to The Locker Room on ESPN Radio.
This is The Locker Room on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
We're going to get to Brady Henderson, our ESPN Seattle Seahawks reporter. He was at the game earlier today between the Seahawks and the Green Bay Packers, and there were some things going on. Little people said there was fisticuffs, and then some said there was not a fight. Somebody got ejected. He should have been ejected. Aaron Rodgers had season lows, or like didn't have any points or interceptions in the first half. We got to get to what was going on in Green Bay today in Week 1. But we want to get to the phone lines. 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. Let's go to Joe. Joe over in Jacksonville, listening on 92.5 ESPN Radio. What's up, Joe?
Hey, what's up, Kirk? How you doing?
I'm doing good. What you got for us?
Well, y'all had just made the comment about the Houston and Jacksonville game. You said, you kind of want to give Houston the pass. But can't you make the argument that Jacksonville actually has it worse with not being able to come home, us sitting in a hurricane right now, and not knowing how their family is?
That's a great
Houston
point.
Houston actually got to go out there and have a clear mind. The Jaguars don't get to come home. And to take away, because they always rag on these Jaguars.
Right.
They beat their tail in the trenches today. And Calais Campbell earned his money.
Big time.
And nobody's saying anything about giving credit. They're saying, oh, poor Houston, we're sitting in a hurricane right now.
That's a great point, man. Look, I don't think we took anything away from Jacksonville. No. We gave their defense a lot of credit. We talked about Calais Campbell and his 4 sacks. We didn't talk about Leonard Fournette and his 100 yards rushing.
Yeah,
they did a tremendous job today. Yeah, I mean, it's a fair point. I mean, Jacksonville should get the same pass as Houston did, but right. I guess J.J. Watt, for what he's done and the money he's raised and the ovation he got going into Houston, I mean, yeah, you almost want to forgive them a loss. Yeah, big time.
Yeah, that was the story going in, is what. Yeah. Because remember, the Jaguars played in the 4th preseason game.
True.
The Texans didn't, so they hadn't played any organized football in roughly over 2.5 weeks. It felt like, and then what was just going on. And look, we're praying for our people down in Florida as well. I know the Miami Dolphins, they have landed in California. They'll be practicing in Los Angeles for the next week as they gear up to play the Los Angeles Chargers next weekend. I think the people of Tampa. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers organization, I think they have moved their operations up to, I want to say, Charlotte for the week as they get ready to take on the Carolina Panthers. So that's something that's been out there so far. But the Jacksonville Jaguars, like I'm a former Jaguar, so I know how that community means. This is a big win, especially a division win against the Texans, who've owned that division literally the last couple of years. With Andrew Luck not being out there, which we can get into as well, because I have no idea what's going to happen with the Indianapolis Colts now that Scott Tolzien has been benched and now in favor for Jacoby Brissett. But I want to get into our late afternoon games, DeMarco, and One of our late afternoon games was between the Green Bay Packers and the Seattle Seahawks. Now, Green Bay won this game 17-9, but it was really about how this game started. And you know what? Let's bring on Brady Henderson, our ESPN Seattle Seahawks reporter. And Jeremy Lane got ejected, Brady. Pete Carroll says he didn't see a punch being thrown. From your vantage point, Brady, what did you see happening on that play?
Yeah, that was really a monumental play in this game, and it happened very early in the game. What I saw was rookie Naz Jones made a tremendous play to intercept an Aaron Rodgers pass at the line of scrimmage, and on the run back, it looked like he had a clear pass to the end zone, and then Cliff Averill gave Aaron Rodgers a shove kind of in the side back area, so kind of iffy as to whether or not that would have been called. Now, the thing that Pete Carroll said about that afterwards is that Cliff Averill didn't even need to do that. It looked like Naz Jones was going to score on that play. And then the second half of that kind of crazy play was, like you said, Jeremy Lane got ejected for throwing a punch. It was kind of hard to see from the press box exactly what happened. Pete Carroll said that when he saw it afterwards, he didn't see Jeremy Lane throw a punch. But that was just, again, a monumental play and a monumental ejection for the Seahawks, because that elevated rookie quarterback Shaquille Griffin to the number 2 spot. He was already going to be in Aaron Rodgers' crosshairs, just being a rookie playing against Aaron Rodgers at Lambeau Field, but that was even more so the case once Lane went down.
Wow. Can you talk about the impact of Earl Thomas coming back to that defense, that Seahawks defense?
Yeah, DeMarco, Earl Thomas has looked fantastic all summer and all preseason, and this was really just a continuation of everything we saw. And that was especially evident in the preseason when there was just no hesitation from Earl Thomas's part. He was reading and reacting. He was throwing his body around. He was covering sideline to sideline, and that's a lot of what we saw tonight. He had a few big hits. I can't remember exactly who it was on, but he was just doing what Earl Thomas does, covering a lot of ground. He nearly came away with an interception, and he was regretting that in the locker room after the game, that he couldn't come up with that interception. But all in all, it was a nice game for Earl Thomas and a very encouraging sign given how important he is to the Seahawks defense.
Brady Henderson, ESPN Seahawks reporter, joining us here in the locker room. Kirk Morrison and DeMarco Farr. When you look at this defense for Seattle, obviously you mentioned Earl Thomas, but a lot of people want to know, is this defense back? And if you hold Aaron Rodgers to, a almost career lows in the first half, interceptions, no touchdowns, only 3 points at the half, is this defense still as formidable as it's been in the last couple seasons?
Yeah, I think so. I think this game, was an indication of that. They were not perfect on defense, especially on third down. I think they allowed Green Bay to convert 9 of 16 chances on third down. We also saw that play in the second half when Aaron Rodgers kind of caught the Seahawks defense napping when they had 12 men on the field, and he took a shot deep to Jordy Nelson that resulted in a touchdown. Other than that, it's hard to really find fault with what the Seahawks did. This is Aaron Rodgers, and this is Lambeau Field, and that is usually an unstoppable combination. And the Seahawks really bottled him up in the first half, keeping him scoreless. They got to him, I think, 4 times in the game, and even when they didn't get to him, they at least moved him off the spot. So it's hard to find a lot of fault. They weren't perfect, but it's hard to find a lot of fault with what the Seahawks did on defense today.
I was just going to say, real quick, even though the Seahawks took a loss, it must be nice for you and the rest of Seattle to get back to talking about just football, stuff that happens on the field.
Exactly, yeah. It's been a crazy couple of weeks for the Seahawks. There always seems to be something going on with this team, whatever it is, and that was the case the last couple of weeks. First with the very busy weekend in cutting the rosters. They made 5 trades, including the one that acquired Sheldon Richardson, and then with all the Michael Bennett stuff last week. It has been a very eventful week, and it was almost like Wednesday came around, and we had hardly even talked or written much about the Week 1 opponent, Green Bay.
And just the national anthem. Obviously, people want to know about what happened, what took place. Obviously, both Bennett brothers playing against each other, Brady, and one on one sideline, on the other sideline. Anything from Michael in the beginning of this game for the national anthem?
Yeah, so Michael Bennett did what he's been doing, I think, since the first preseason game, which is taking a seat on the bench during the national anthem, and also ever since the second preseason game, center Justin Britt has stood by Bennett with a supportive hand on Bennett's shoulders. That's what we've seen ever since the second preseason game. We saw that again today, and Thomas Rawls was right there. Thomas Rawls, the running back who was inactive today because of an ankle injury. He was standing there right next to Michael Bennett, and we also saw Cliff Averill, who's one of Bennett's best friends on the team. We saw him come, for the last few seconds of the national anthem, and he sat by Bennett. It was pretty much exactly what we've seen for the last few weeks from the Seahawks during the national anthem.
Hey, Brady, I appreciate the time, man, and I guess we'll catch up with you next week. It'll be a better week, I think, for the Seahawks, right?
Yeah, much easier opponent next week against San Francisco.
Sounds good. Appreciate the time.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, man, thanks, Brady. You know what? The one thing about this, though, too, DeMarco, it'll probably be a little easier opponent for Seattle, but I don't know if it's going to get any easier for the team that we saw today at the Los Angeles Coliseum, the Indianapolis Colts.
No.
I don't know if things are going to get any easier. No Andrew Luck. Scott Tolzien, your starter, and a head coach that thought he was playing against the 49ers.
Wow.
You know what? I'll just leave it at that. We'll dive more into that. What's next for the Indianapolis Colts as we discuss what happened today in Los Angeles? It's the Locker Room. Kirk Morrison, DeMarco Farr here on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
This is the Locker Room on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
The Indianapolis Colts just got demolished. Is that the right word you want to use? Debacle, demolished.
Use an Emmitt Smith word from back in the day. They got debacled.
As the Rams took on the Colts and beat them 46-9. And look, it was midway through the second quarter as a game in which we both attended. You were down there on the field as the field analyst for the Rams. I was upstairs doing some other broadcasting coverage for the team. And DeMarco, as I'm watching the game, they got to about 24 right before the half, and they kicked a field goal. And they immediately said, what's the most points the Rams scored in the game last year? And I remember it was 38. Remember they scored 38 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah.
And they were on the verge of getting that in the first half.
True.
Now, I didn't know if it was a product of Sean McVay, who made his head coaching debut today for the Rams as the head coach, his first game. I didn't know, was it more of his offense and with the strides this team has taken, or were the Indianapolis Colts that bad, DeMarco? I mean, I'm trying to figure it out because I want to give the one team the credit, but I got to say this other team was just flat out awful.
Yeah, I'm with you. Look, I mean, when Adam Vinatieri misses a field goal and an extra point,
yes,
you know it's going bad. Right. One of the best kickers in the history of the game. So, yeah, without Andrew Luck, and I was talking about this with Marshall Faulk before the game, it's going to be tough for any small market team when you have to pay a quarterback that much to be competitive on the field. And, I think he's exactly right. Now, imagine if you remove said quarterback from the lineup, what do you have? And I think you saw that on game day today. Not much around. Frank Gore, I think he's the best thing they have going right now out there in Indianapolis. But, I mean, not many weapons. I don't think Jared Goff, outside of a few blitzes when they got to him and sacked him the one time, outside of that, he wasn't really threatened in the pocket. So there are no impact players on defense. T.Y. Hilton is pretty much by himself. Jack Doyle had a pretty good first quarter. But other than that, I mean, there's really not much that's going to keep you up as a defensive coordinator or an offensive coordinator getting ready to face the Colts.
No, I totally agree with that. It's when you watch them, I mean, I couldn't name half the guys. I mean, outside of you mentioned T.Y. Hilton, Doyle, Frank Gore. Other than that, it's just a bunch of just guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Dan Deerdorf, the great Hall of Famer and broadcaster. Yes. We used to play this game, or he taught me to play this game. He would put all 22 guys, all 22 starters in a hat and then pull the best team out. So if you did that with the Rams versus the Colts today, I mean, like we said, you might pull Frank Gore, you might pull T.Y. Hilton, and that's about it. The Rams had the better team on paper, and they played like the better team today.
But I think it was more about the quarterback, Scott Tolzien, for the Indianapolis Colts. We know that Andrew Luck is on the active roster. He did not play today, still recovering from shoulder surgery. And so Scott Tolzien was getting the start, and this is what we had been sold, that Scott Tolzien is going to be our starter until Andrew gets back and when he's ready to play. But we've got all the faith and we've got all the confidence, in Scott Tolzien. We're going to be fine. Well, Scott Tolzien, like you mentioned, had the interception return for a touchdown, and he had another one return for a touchdown. So 2 INTs returned for a touchdown, only completed 9 of 18 passes for 128 yards. And there was a change that had to be made. I thought it was going to be made early, and some people said, you can't make that change for Jacoby Brissett. I said, dude, you don't make a trade for Jacoby Brissett unless you plan on playing him. Nobody wants to get traded to sit behind somebody else, and Andrew Luck is not Tom Brady. So I'm just letting you know right now, Andrew Luck is still a quarterback that has been bruised and beaten up, and to all accounts, some people say it may be just more than just a shoulder. He's been getting beat up, that his body may be breaking down. So that's one of the bigger things that to look at going forward right now is, do these Indianapolis Colts have their quarterback at the moment if Andrew Luck is not able to continue to play this season?
The crazy thing is I have some friends there in Indianapolis, and there's not much information going on about their own quarterback. They don't know what's going on with him, which is a bad sign. So if you're Colts fans, I don't know when you're going to see Andrew Luck on the field, and when he actually takes the field, what condition he's going to be in. Remember how fast Peyton Manning fell off a cliff.
Woo.
Yeah, from one season to the next. One season he's great, the next season not.
That went from like 1 week to the next week.
Right. And when you start messing around with those throwing shoulders, I mean, hey, look, I wish them all the best, but as of right now, if you're Chuck Pagano, what choice do you have? You're going to have to pump up your starter right now. You're going to have to keep the faith in the locker room. If not, I mean, I don't think Indianapolis quit today, but I mean, you keep getting, you keep taking it on the chin like they did today, week after week after week. I mean, your season could be over inside of 4 weeks.
You listen to the Locker Room here on ESPN Radio. Kirk Morrison, DeMarco Farr. Speaking of Chuck Pagano, I'm not so sure that Chuck Pagano, he got beat so bad today. I'm not even sure he knew what team he was going up against.
We got his kicked, and credit 49ers and Coach McVay. They played extremely well today. I'm not going to make any excuses. We're not going to make any excuses as a football team that, we don't have this, we don't have that, we're missing this guy, we're missing that guy. That's a bunch of bull crap. And there's not one guy in that locker room that will slide that down that pole. I'm not going to slide that down that pole. Our assistant coaches aren't going to.
That was head coach Chuck Pagano of the Colts. Maybe he was referring to Sean McVay's grandfather.
Maybe.
that was former 49ers executive that was part of them in their early Super Bowl years. So that could have been the reference, because I definitely know that the Indianapolis Colts played the Los Angeles Rams today, DeMarco.
Right. That's one of those like Animal House moments. He's on the roll, just let him go.
Yeah.
I mean,
don't even say nothing. Huh?
I bet his PR guy was like, no, just let him go. Yeah, what are you going to do? But I was counting them up as he was talking on that soundbite. Do you know how many points the Rams scored at home last season? 99. 99 total, all of last season. And think about today and what that's going to do for this fan base, this football team, this offensive football team. So big lift. Even if it is Indianapolis, it's still the NFL, and they're still paying the other team. So it's going to be a confidence boost either way.
Yeah. Well, where do they go from here, though? Because now, I said it earlier, about when you look at the Houston Texans quarterback situation. Tom Savage, he was benched. You bring in Deshaun Watson. The toothpaste is out of the tube. We know how hard it is. You can't put it back in. Is that the same thing here in Indianapolis? Was it a situation or you go back to Tolzien, or you know what, we made the trade, and this is a decision also. Is this going to be a Chris Ballard decision or a Chuck Pagano decision? New general manager, with the head coach saying that we may have to stick with this guy who I traded for because he's much better than what Tolzien got going on right now.
I was on the sideline. I was watching the kid's eyes, Tolzien's eyes, just like Rams defenders, and he was throwing to spots. Yes. He's just trying to run the play that's called. He's not really playing football. I don't know how good Brissett's going to be this early in the season, but clearly you can't go a long way with Tolzien as your quarterback.
Yeah, I just don't see it coming. I just looked at, like you mentioned, I feel like Frank Gore is just being held hostage over there in Indianapolis.
Give us free.
Yes, let him free. Let him go be who he needs to be right now, because that is definitely very difficult. But the first NFL Sunday is in the books, so you know what that means. Tomorrow, a tradition unlike any other, Overreaction Monday returns. You better give us your reactions or your overreactions here on The Locker Room. Kirk Morrison, DeMarco Farr on ESPN Radio.
This is The Locker Room on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
We're going to jump right into it. Here's a guy that I love talking to, Todd Archer, our ESPN NFL Nation Cowboys reporter. And, Todd, I'll go right to it. Today, Ezekiel Elliott and Dak Prescott both did something that they couldn't do as rookies. They defeated the New York Giants today. What's been the sense or the feel for especially Dak Prescott finally beating the Giants defense that has really stymied him the last couple times that he's went up against it?
Yeah, it's funny. He was asked that question in the press conference after the game, and he said, I didn't care about last year. None of that mattered to me. It was about starting this season and winning this game and starting the season off the right way. So, but I have to imagine, though, that you finally get that win against the Giants, that you're saying to yourself, okay, that's over with, that's done with. Now no one can say, I can't beat the New York Football Giants. And, did he play great today? No, he wasn't great. He was good. He was efficient. He missed some throws, especially early on. But he was a guy when it mattered most, didn't turn the ball over, and he made some key plays like the touchdown pass to Jason Witten there in the second quarter.
It's a win. It's a big win. You beat your division rival, the Giants, but it's just one win, week one. But talking about the offseason, everything that's been going on with Ezekiel Elliott, we spent the entire offseason talking about the Cowboys. How much credit do you give Jason Garrett for keeping this team focused?
Absolutely. That's a great point. And you go back to last year, and I've said this a couple of times with this team, where they lose Tony Romo in the preseason. Everybody thinks the season's over, it's done with before it even begins. And they go 13-3 with Dak Prescott, a rookie fourth-round pick, as their quarterback. Garrett deserves credit for that, for having the players maintain their focus and commitment on what's in front of them, not what happened to them in the past. And I think with this thing as well, it's not been about will Zeke play, will he not play, will he be available for the first game, but not the next 6 games. It's more just about focusing, as Garrett says time and again, and it's a cliche, and we all hate the answer, but focus on the task at hand, focus on getting better today, and then the tomorrows will take care of themselves. And he really deserves a lot of credit for how this team has operated, obviously this summer, but even last year as well, but how they handled the Romo injury.
ESPN Nation Cowboys reporter Todd Archer joining us, The Locker Room here, Kirk Morrison, DeMarco Farr. And Todd, look, I'm looking at this defense, and obviously a couple guys are off on suspension, but this defense held Eli Manning, that offense, to only 3 points for the Giants. Is that more of not having Odell Beckham out there on the field, or does this defense look more improved to you, especially with Jalen Smith making his debut for the Cowboys tonight?
Right, and we'll find out when the rematch comes around how big of a difference Beckham makes, obviously. But you go back to last year when the Cowboys played these guys with Odell on the field both times. They gave up 20 points and lost, and they gave up 10 points and lost. And it was a 61-yard touchdown, I believe, to Beckham in that rematch at MetLife Stadium. So the Cowboys have kind of, you don't want to say anybody's figured anybody out, but they've kind of figured out, don't give up the big plays, get after that quarterback with really pass rushers that not a lot of people will know about. And, Eli's eyes don't go downfield. They go down on the line and the pass rush and feeling things that might not be there. So the last 3 times the Cowboys have played Eli, they've had his number a little bit. And it's really encouraging when, as you said, about Sean Lee. Everybody knows about Jalen Smith's story, maybe not how good of a player he can be yet. But after that, you're kind of looking at the rest of the defense saying, who are the rest of these guys? And this is a defense that gave up 2 first downs in the first half, 13 for the game, 233 yards, 35 yards rushing. This is, Rod Marinelli deserves a lot of credit for putting this together and really having these guys buy into the lack of respect card. He's playing it, and it's working awful well. It worked awful well tonight for sure.
Yeah, I got to admit, they played better than I thought they would. I can't wait to read how you described Cole Beasley's catch today. Yeah, I'm running out of words for it.
I asked him that question. They go, what happened? He's like, he couldn't even describe it. And actually, it's funny. He goes, I saw Witten break off hot, so I thought the ball was going to Witten, so I didn't even really look. And then I looked late, and the ball was on me. So if I did what I was supposed to do, I would have made an easier catch. Instead, I made it much more harder than it needed to be. And I think the most impressive part is not only do you pin it against the back of your head, you get your feet down.
Right.
I mean, that's some pretty good awareness. I thought Des Bryant, I wish I remember the year, but he caught a touchdown pass against the Detroit Lions where he pinned it against his helmet as well. That had everybody say, what did he just do? What was that? And this is going to be the same thing with Beasley. As you go back and look, you're just going to there's no words to describe it. I'm out on that one. Someone better than me is going to have to describe that.
Hey, Todd, I know you're up against a deadline, man. Enjoy finishing the story. We'll read what you got out there tomorrow, all right?
All right, thanks, fellas. I appreciate it.
Sound good. That's Todd Archer, our Cowboys NFL Nation reporter, joining us here on the Locker Room. But, DeMarco, just looking at, what he was talking about, I mean, this Cowboys team looks to be improved. I mean, looks to be that – I don't know if they're the same 13-3 team they were a year ago, but to me, they looked fast tonight. They look like the offense has not changed one bit. It's really going to come down to defensively what happens for this football team, and hopefully nothing else happens to Zeke Elliott during the season with this court injunction. Is he suspended? Is he not suspended? That's the only thing I kind of see maybe possibly derailing the Cowboys.
Well, yeah, just going into this game, 3 question marks for me. I mean, one, how was Zeke going to play and how was he going to play? I think he answered that. I thought he was tremendous carrying the football and catching it out of the backfield. Number 2, how was Dak Prescott going to look in his sophomore season?
Right.
We talked about that, MVP candidate. And then the 3rd was, can this defense actually stand up and give Eli some problems? And you saw it, man. And he mentioned Eli Manning looking down at the rush. He's great at it. Great pocket awareness, but he's right. When he starts getting pressured, he will look for that rush, and he stops looking downfield. So, but I do say this. If Odell Beckham Jr. was on the field, I think he's looking downfield more.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's looking down more, and I think more eyeballs will be on Odell Beckham Jr. I want to go back to one of the early afternoon games, and that was the Oakland Raiders taking on the Tennessee Titans, 2 teams in which a lot of people, possibly have them at the top of their divisions. The Raiders, the AFC West, the Titans, the AFC South. The Raiders come away with a convincing 26-16 win. The game was pretty much close throughout, but there was a sequence, DeMarco, the last 5 minutes plus, so about 5 minutes, 39 seconds left. The Raiders played an old-fashioned game of keep away. It was them running the football with Marshawn Lynch and extra tackles and tight ends out there. They grinded it out, and guess what? The 4-minute offense is what we call it. The Tennessee Titans did not touch the football again. With 5 minutes left in the fourth, a little bit more than that, they did not touch the football anymore because of what the Raiders did on the ground. When you look at the beast mode and his running style, obviously you saw him for so many years when he's within that division. What is he bringing now to the Raiders that some people may be possibly overlooking?
Well, when he's back there, I mean, he's going to draw most of the eyeballs of everybody in the front seven and those safeties too. Because look, he's fast. We know he's quick. He's a great running back, has great vision, but I've never seen a tackle breaker like him. The guy's balance is just unbelievable. And you saw what he did to Jarrell Casey. Just absolutely trucked him. That's an all-pro he just ran over. Their best player, and he absolutely flat-backed him. It's a sick joke, but think about it. That's like seeing your dad get beat up in the parking lot. I mean, what do you do after that? You know, I mean, pick him up, dust him off, send him home, and say, we'll get him again next time. I mean, look, if the Raiders can get Marshawn Lynch into the postseason, I mean, with a healthy Derek Carr at quarterback, look out for Oakland in the AFC.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And you look at the Titans, now the game in which you thought they, a lot of people had picked them to win this game. But Marcus Mariota, 25 of 41, 256. He had no touchdowns, no interceptions. I'm looking more at DeMarco Murray. Only 12 carries, 44 yards. He had a 21 long. So really, you take that 21-yard gain out, he really only had 11 carries for, right around not even 30, about 20 yards. So, here's a guy that they're going to lean on heavily. And DeMarco Murray showing a little bit of inconsistency early on. Not a lot of training camp in games, so he may have to get his body getting back going early in the season.
And remember, what did we talk about with the Raiders all offseason? The fact that they don't have any linebackers.
Right.
And look what they did today.
Yes.
I mean, against one of the better running backs in the National Football League. So, look, any given Sunday, I thought they did a fantastic job, had a great game plan against what Mariota and what DeMarco Murray were trying to do. Look, Marshawn Lynch, I think, has been a big lift to that football team on both sides of the football.
Yeah, he's not only a big lift, he's an emotional leader. I call him two things. He's a closer and he's your starter and your closer. There may be some guys that come in and give you some middle relief, some long relief, but he is not only your starter, he is your closer. That's who Marshawn Lynch is. I got to give out the number, 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. Get your calls ready. I've got my list ready, as tomorrow I can't wait. It's Overreaction Monday. We've been waiting for football for it feels like since February. Now, guess what? What are we going to overreact tomorrow? A lot of people's overreactions. I wrote mine down. I hope DeMarco has written his down. We're going to discuss the overreactions that I've come up with, DeMarco's come up with, next on The Locker Room. Kirk Morrison and DeMarco Farr on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
This is The Locker Room on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Our number, 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. And I bring the number up because tomorrow is the holiday that I love, DeMarco. And you know what? It's actually a little bit different for me tomorrow because the team who I cover actually won the season opener. So I don't have to overreact about anything really. I mean, a couple overreactions, but nothing too crazy, where there's a lot of other people out there who want to open up and vent and say, you know what, I can't stand this. I don't like this call. What are we doing? That's what I can't wait for tomorrow. Overreaction Monday. So I open up the phone lines now. I want to go out to Vegas. Let's start with Jeff in Vegas. He's listening on 1100 ESPN. What's up, Jeff?
Good evening, Raiders fan here. Got to hear you two doing the Rams game because they're one of 6 teams where we have a home broadcast here in the Vegas market. My overreaction is to the lower scoring games this week and the lower scoring games next week. You had 6 division games. You got 9 teams that had quarterback issues. You weren't going to see a lot of offense. You've only got about 5 matchups in week 2 that are involving teams that are really high scoring. So expect the game to be close and competitive for the first couple weeks, and then about end of the month, scoring will pick up.
Yeah, you know what, DeMarco, I agree with that. For what he's saying, and appreciate the phone call, Jeff. I agree with you. The reason why I agree with him is because how many games did it take for us to get a breakdown, DeMarco, when we played? What was the minimum amount of games that you needed for us to do a breakdown?
4.
In Philly, it's 4 games.
Yeah, 4 games.
So it's a 4-game breakdown. That's when I think we know who you are as a team.
Right.
In those 4 games, you're not going to show me something in the 5th game like, oh, wow, they're changing up everything.
Well,
like, no,
yeah.
It's a 4-game breakdown, and that's who you are. That's how fast you are as an offense. That's your playmaker on offense. That's just your favorite runs. You know what a team is like after watching them for 4 games. And
there's an exception to the rule this year, the Indianapolis Colts.
Oh, my God.
I think we know who they are. Yeah.
Well, but to Jeff's point from Vegas, I will tell him that if you look at today's games, that Cincinnati was shut out. They had the goose egg up there. We know that the Houston Texans only had 7 points as well. They were in single digits. We mentioned Indianapolis already. They only had 9. I think the surprising one for me is 2 teams. It's the Seattle Seahawks with only 9 points today. They were held under 10, and the New York Giants. It surprised me just because how much they need Odell Beckham for them to score points, because they only scored 3 against the Dallas defense. To me, they're not the number 1 in the NFL. You can find ways to score points, which the Giants just couldn't do. And the San Francisco 49ers, we talked about Sean McVay's debut as a head coach. In his first game, his team goes out and scores 46 points. Kyle Shanahan's team goes out and scores 3 points in his debut. So I think that's more to do with, obviously the quarterback situation, possibly a little bit different.
I agree. Yeah. Brian Hoyer, 24-35, that's not bad, under 200 yards. So nothing's really going downfield there. No touchdowns, 1 pick.
But how many points did you score?
3. Carlos Hyde, 9 carries, 45 yards. I mean, that's a 5-yard average, but you have to give credit to the Panthers for controlling the football game. When you see numbers like that from the 49ers offense and you only generate 3 points, you have to give all the credit to the other team.
I just got a couple, I'm throwing out there. Number 1, this one kind of goes back to Cleveland. Cleveland, look, they lost the game 21-18 to the Pittsburgh Steelers. My overreaction was just looking at the game. They didn't really have the production from the wide receiver position like they thought they had. Corey Coleman led them with 5 catches, 53 yards. My overreaction as a Cleveland fan, forget about the quarterback. They should have never let Terrell Pryor go. That's what I'm overreacting about. We don't have a receiver to throw the ball to. They should have let him go. That's one of my overreactions for tomorrow. What do you have, DeMarco? Give me one.
Okay, overreaction. If the Texans had Dwayne Brown, they wouldn't have given up 10 sacks.
I don't know if that's an overreaction. That is a fact, DeMarco.
I'm trying to get the man paid.
That is a fact. No, don't do that. You can't go back on that. That is a true fact.
Then I'll give you a real one. The Atlanta Falcons only beating the Bears by 6 points, by less than a touchdown. So the Atlanta Falcons are still suffering from the Super Bowl loss. That's an overreaction.
Yeah, you know what? That's not an overreaction. It's always going to be there. They had a lead in this game, and it came down to the last play. So not an overreaction. That's definitely well thought out. Let's go to Montana, though. Dusty in Montana. He's listening to the Locker Room on XM80. What's up, Dusty?
It's actually Rusty, but yeah.
Rusty, okay.
Good. What do you think about Seattle's the impact of them moving, giving up Jermaine Kearse for Richardson for the defense this year, and then Richardson barely even on the field over the second quarter? Is that an overreaction on that?
Yeah, I looked it up.
Short 9 points.
Yeah, Sheldon Richardson had 4 tackles. I think that led the defensive line as far as run stuffing. I mean, Michael Bennett did what he does best. He gets to the quarterback, but I thought the move was tremendous. I mean, because we're in the NFC West with them, so they're tough to play up in Seattle, and you add one of the best down linemen in the National Football League to that mix, it's scary. But he's right. You're giving up one of your best receiving threats out there. So there's a trade-off. You stop the run, you do well, but you also can't move the ball through the air. So it's almost 6 in one, half dozen in the other right now for Pete Carroll.
Yeah, I think that's one of those things, too, where, this team is just going to continue to get better. I think defensively it's going to get better. I think Muhammad Wilkerson will be fine, but they got to find more playmakers offensively in the back end. Let's squeeze in one more phone call. Let's go to Phoenix. Jerome in Phoenix listening to us on 98.7. What's up, Jerome?
Carson Palmer's career is over. Tim Gabbard. You never thought I'd hear that.
You better quit. You better quit looking at my sheet. You are looking at my paper right now, because I had it differently, though. I said if I'm an Arizona Cardinals fan, I'm over there telling we should have drafted a quarterback. That's what I'm saying. If I'm a Cardinals fan, we should have drafted a quarterback because if Carson Palmer wasn't showing what he can do, we could have somebody waiting in the wings. So that's one of mine. We'll get to more of these. I love these. Overreactions. Our number, 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. More of your overreaction calls on Monday on The Locker Room on ESPN Radio.
This is The Locker Room on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
It's Locker Room. Kirk Morrison, DeMarco Farr here on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, and XM80. Getting ready for tomorrow, my holiday, one of my favorite holidays of the year, Overreaction Monday. It's always that week after week one, that Sunday. You get ready for Overreaction Monday where fans are upset and, they've given you predictions of how their team is going to be this year. And some teams laid a big fat egg in week one. And listening to some of the fans and who they've or what they have to say about it. 888-SAY-ESPN is the number, 888-729-3776. The Dallas Cowboys won, but Nick is in Dallas listening on 103.3. Let's bring Nick up. What's up, Nick?
Hey, what's going on?
Good. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing good. I got an overreaction, and it's actually not about the Cowboys. I'm in Dallas, but I grew up in New Orleans, and I'm overreacting already. The Panthers won. The Falcons won. We hadn't been good since we won the Super Bowl. And,
right.
To be honest, I'm only 27, but growing up most of my life, the Saints were terrible. We used to, I'm having memories back to the Aaron Brooks days. I'm overreacting now. It's time to go ahead and pull out the paper bags. We got Minnesota and then New England in the second week. We're already through.
Wow. The paper bags.
even with Adrian Peterson saying he's still the same Adrian Peterson of old, you still pulling out the paper bag. Yeah, I guess he probably is.
I think you should wait and see. Right.
Yeah.
Give that a chance first. Yeah.
Hey, let's go out to North Carolina. Omar, listening on 99.9 FM in North Carolina. What's up, Omar?
What's going on? How about them Cowboys?
Oh, yeah, wow. There you go.
Even in North Carolina. I love it. Hey, I got an overreaction. I'm not sure if it makes sense or not, but what in the world is going on with Miami going after Cutler, and then the team that the Panthers beat today have a starting quarterback of Hoyer? What do they see in these guys but a proven record of being losers? Do these teams not have any scouts? Do they not have any money to go after a quarterback? Why do they keep hiring these people and they're total losers as quarterbacks?
Wow, that's not an overreaction.
That's real. Yeah, I got you,
might be dead
Omar.
on there.
Well, I give you two quick ones real quick.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why is because a quarterback, the coach may be his guy, or the coach says, that's my guy. I know him. I can bring him in. He knows my system. We just didn't have enough talent around him.
Yeah.
And if you have a guy, trust me, it's the same reason why Mark Sanchez is the number 3 quarterback in Chicago. Look, he's there just to take pictures. Trust me, he's not getting into a game. If Mark Sanchez gets into a game, the Bears are in trouble. But it's good to be someone's guy. That's the first part. I think the second part is too. These quarterbacks are what we call a stopgap. They're not part of your long-term plan, but they give you, I think, ample security to say, you know what, we can win with this guy. We got to put some things around him, but he's not going to be our future. So that's what they are, stopgap quarterbacks.
But if you had one of those quarterback competitions, just pure arm talent, I bet Cutler finishes in the top half, maybe even top 10.
I think it's also the potential of what Cutler can be, because we've seen him be great and we've seen him be really, really bad. So I think that's something that has to do with
a lot of him being really, really bad.
Right. Hey, but if he's consistent, I mean, he can keep rolling with it. Let's go to Virginia. Eric over in Virginia. He's listening on ESPN 980. What's up, Eric?
My quarterback said he had to pray on his franchise tag, and he signs yet another tag, and he has no timing whatsoever, overthrows everybody. and then turns the ball over 3 times. And we let go of 2 of our best receivers. That's my overreaction.
That's not an overreaction. That's true.
Terrell Pryor better catch that ball in the end zone too, though, Eric. Come on, man. That thing can't just bounce off your hands, Terrell Pryor. If the quarterback throw the ball in the bucket, you got to make that catch, Terrell Pryor. But Eric over in Virginia is talking about Kirk Cousins today. He signed his franchise tag. He is the franchise quarterback over there in Washington. But his numbers today, for everybody out there, he was 23 of 40. 240 yards. He had the 1 touchdown, the 1 interception, but he had a couple, just giveaways as far as the fumbles. So 4 turnovers as a team for the Washington Redskins. And, that's not really an overreaction. I get it. Let's go over to our neck of the woods here in Los Angeles. Rocky listening to 710 LA ESPN. What's up, Rocky?
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
We're doing good.
Awesome. I have a fair to say overreaction. The Oakland Raiders is like their defense will be I would say, I'm going to say top 10 peripheral. They're going to be they showed a lot of signs today, and I'm going on a limb here and say they're reconstructed. They did well in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
They look well today.
Well, I'm going to hold you right there and say pump your brakes. The Raiders just found a team that plays a similar style to them, make you wear your big boy pants and go out there and make plays in the running game. That's what the Raiders want to do. You get them into some bunches and some stacks and then run some crossing routes, all hell break loose in that Raiders secondary. So before you a great performance by them today against Tennessee, but I think they were just playing against a team that didn't give them a lot of problems. Now we'll see going forward for the Raiders where they end up at. Let's go to Toronto. Listening on XM80 is Andrew. What's up, Andrew?
Hey, how's it going, Kirk? I had a question for you.
Sure.
With Reuben Foster going down for San Francisco, I wanted your opinion on some linebackers you thought stepped up this week.
No, I'm not coming out of retirement, by the way. I just want to give you that heads up. Okay, but go ahead.
I just wanted to also say we don't no one gives enough love to defensive fantasy players. Like my team, we have a few defensive players, and I had him, Reuben Foster. So who do you think's a big tackling machine to look out for this season?
Obviously, you know what? You got to go with Luke Kuechly. I mean, that's pretty easy. But if you're looking for somebody under the radar, I'm a big fan of Deion Jones, the linebacker over in Atlanta, number 45. The Patriots put him in coverage in that Super Bowl, and he got tired and burnt out. But he's a guy that I want to look to. Another guy, you got to wait 2 more games, though, okay? And he'll be back out there. A guy over in Cincinnati by the name of Vontaze Burfict. He's another tackle machine. The only thing is you got to wait about 2 more games.
Right.
And,
I like Sean Lee.
Yeah, Sean Lee,
Dallas.
Too.
Yeah.
I think those are the easy ones, though. We know Sean is going to be around. He's always amongst the league leaders. The same thing, like I mentioned with Luke Kuechly, he's going to be amongst the league leaders. But I think kind of guys who fall under the radar a little bit, are guys like that. I can throw maybe one more, Christian Kirksey. If you don't watch the Cleveland Browns defense a lot, here's a guy that was top 5 in tackles last year. So Christian Kirksey got a nice little compensation as well from his team. So those are some guys just to look forward to as well. Go back to the phone lines, 888-CSPN, 888-729-3776. Let's go to Wisconsin. Ted over in Wisconsin listening on 100.5. What's up, Ted?
Hey, Keith, I know you used to play in Buffalo.
Yeah.
And so I know you can have appreciation for this, my friend. By the way, I was a big fan of yours at the time.
Appreciate it.
But it says you want overreaction Monday. I'm saying that, Bills didn't commit penalties. The wide receiver showed up. It's a new day in Buffalo. That's my overreaction for today.
Yeah, you overreacting because they played a team that had. I was talking to my group chat today, DeMarco, and one of my guys said, "Hey, we're 15 more losses before we get to draft Sam Darnold." That's where Jets fans are. Yeah, that's where some Jets fans are. We got 15 more losses before they can go out and draft one Sam Darnold. Let's get a couple more in before we get ready to look ahead at our Monday night matchup doubleheader. Can't wait for that. Minnesota taking on the New Orleans Saints, as well as the Denver Broncos and the Los Angeles Chargers. Wow, still getting used to that. Let's go to Scranton. Josh over in Scranton listening on 100.5. What's up, Josh?
Hey, how you guys doing?
We're doing
How
good.
about my Dolphins? Look how bad they did this week. Jay Cutler, look what happens. He comes in. That's my overreaction. I mean, why did they not play this week somewhere else?
They didn't want to. First of all, it's a lot going on, and again, our prayers to people down in Florida. Hurricane Irma going through that right now. Some of its devastation. The Miami Dolphins are in California at the moment. They are going to set up shop for the next week to 10 days, and they play against the Los Angeles Chargers next week. So might as well just get out here, practice, get acclimated, play your game, and you'll see what's going to happen after this week. But Jay Cutler, he's fine. He's back in California. I think he's good to go.
I have to correct the caller, though. Jay Cutler's yours now.
Yeah,
it's not your Dolphins and Jay Cutler. He's yours too.
You own him, man. Let's go to South Carolina. Cameron, he's listening on 97.7. What's up, Cameron?
Nothing much.
What you got, man? You got an overreaction, or what you doing?
An overreaction. I'm a 49ers fan. Have been since about 2001, so I've seen the bad days and a couple good days.
Yeah, you saw the Mike Singletary days. The Mike Singletary days. I want winners.
My reaction is this: after being really bad this season, do you think it's possible we may end up trying to go for one of the lottery quarterbacks this year?
They could.
They could.
I heard rumors about Kirk Cousins.
That's a rumor.
Yeah.
That's not an overreaction. That is a rumor. And, DeMarc, I'm kind of scratching my head a little bit because, first of all, do you want to give up that kind of money first for a quarterback? You're trying to build something, too. You know what I mean? You're trying to build something in San Francisco. And to dedicate that type of money to your cap, you need players. You know what I mean? So
right.
You need players and you need money to go out and get players. And if you devote that much money to Kirk Cousins and he has no one to throw to besides right now, I think the number
think of it this way.
Garcon,
yeah, they're built on defense. They have one of the better D lines. If you keep Foster healthy, you don't need to spend money there. What's missing from this roster? What doesn't fit? Brian Hoyer, if you replace him with a better Kirk Cousins, who knows what this offense can do.
They drafted C.J. Beathard in the third round.
True.
So, but it goes to what we saw here in Los Angeles. So we saw the Rams draft a quarterback in the third round named Sean Mannion, and we saw them circle back the next year and draft a quarterback in Jared Goff in the first round. So,
very true.
So, yeah, sometimes it may not work out, but, hey, We'll still keep overreacting. I hope everybody gets their overreaction questions for tomorrow ready. Bring them to the water cooler at work. Call into your local radio station, or you call in here to the locker room, and we will take your call.
Thanks for listening to the Locker Room Podcast. Make sure to subscribe by clicking the Listen tab on the ESPN app.